making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Last year, former President Joe Biden's horrible debate performance stunned the nation, but the outcome of the debate was not a surprise, apparently, to Biden insiders and his inner circle, obviously, because they're communicating with him on a regular basis. And according to Ron Klain, Biden was just as much of a mess in the debate preparations. So we're learning about that now. Ron Klain was his chief of staff, right?
Yeah, for the first 2 years, and has been a stalwart insider in the Biden camp the entire time. That's why some of these comments about the debate prep are shocking. I actually got a quote from Ron Klain after these comments came out. I'll read that quote to you after Anna reads what came out in the book.
So in 2024, Ron Klain joined Biden's debate preparation team. So this is how he had inside knowledge about how things were going during the debate practices and stuff like that. Now he spoke to reporter Cliff Whipple, who's got a great last name, for Whipple's upcoming book, which The Guardian obtained a copy of. According to Klain, it turned out that Biden didn't know what Trump had been saying and couldn't grasp what the back and forth was. Left preparation and fell asleep by the pool, which sounds lovely, but isn't lovely when you're preparing a debate for a presidential run. Obsessed about foreign leaders saying, these guys say I'm doing a great job as president, so I must be a great president. Didn't really understand what his argument was on inflation and had nothing to say about a second term other than finish the job. At his first meeting with Biden in Aspen Lodge, the president's cabin, Whipple writes, Klain was startled. He'd never seen him so exhausted and out of it. Biden was unaware of what was happening in his own campaign. Halfway through the session, the president excused himself and went off to sit by the pool. And it seemed as though the only thing motivating Joe Biden was working with NATO, like as if that's the most important thing in like selling yourself to the American people, right? To win another term. Klain, Whipple writes, wondered half seriously if Biden thought he was president of NATO instead of the United States. He just became very enraptured with being the head of NATO. There's more. We'll get into what happened during the 2 mock debates in just a minute, but Cenk, thoughts so far?
Yeah, none of this makes sense because the quotes in the book from Ron Klain make sense. Biden was a disaster, and anybody who spent time with him would realize that. I mean, look at that clip we just showed you. Can you believe that Democrats argued after the debate that he shouldn't drop out?
I can believe it because Democrats love to gaslight. And when I say Democrats, I'm not talking about the voters. I never am talking about the voters. I'm talking about Democrats in positions of power, administration officials, those close to Biden. No, media figures who identify as Democrats. No, I'm not surprised because their modus operandi from the very beginning was gaslight, 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 gaslight about everything. Gaslight about immigration, gaslight about crime, gaslight about Biden's age, gaslight about everything because we think the voters are stupid and that they don't recognize reality. I can't stand these people. All of them should never work in politics again, but unfortunately they will, they will.
Yeah, so TYT got this quote from Ron Klain to try to explain it because he says that Biden shouldn't have dropped out. Well, wait, if you believe that, how could you believe that he wouldn't drop out? But he's told TYT, my concern was not with his mental acuity, which was sharp, but with his focus on Ukraine and Israel, which had pulled him out of domestic politics. I did not doubt his ability to run for president, only his focus on these foreign policy matters that were derailing his domestic agenda.
Okay, well, Ron Klain was wrong. If that's what he actually meant, he's wrong.
Yeah.
Really, he's sharp, Biden's sharp. Okay.
So look, the reason why I say that doesn't make sense, and look, Klain's an interesting character because he was the one guy who was open-minded and actually listened to progressives and brought them into the White House, etc. So there's positive things about Ron Klain, and it was always willing to talk to others, which Almost never happens in the establishment. So he has that going for him. But even in these, but if you notice, he didn't deny anything in the quote he gave to UIT, right? And so if these are true, that Biden didn't really understand what his argument was on inflation, I mean, that was the number one issue, right? And had nothing to say about a second term other than, oh, I'll finish the job. Like, these are bare minimum, could not finish a debate prep for 25 minutes. So any rational person would have looked at that and said, no, we can't go to the camp. We can't do this debate. We can't go in this campaign. This person cannot win. It's not possible. If you don't know why you should get a second term, you don't know how to address the number one issue in the country, and you're not sure if you're the president of America or NATO, you should not run for president. That's the most obvious thing in the whole wide world. But when you are in a bubble and you got the MAGA bubble, you got this bubble, that bubble, but the thickest bubble of all is inside Washington. And so serving power is such a gigantic pull for all of these people, and being in power, that they're like, nope, nope, totally fine. He can't even say a sentence. He can't say a sentence, and we should run him for president.
Whipple describes 2 mock debates. Klain called off the first after 45 minutes because Biden's voice was a wreck, and he could not explain his own agenda for the second term should he win. And Biden himself called off the second mock debate after 25 minutes, saying, I'm just too tired to continue, and I'm afraid of losing my voice here, and I feel bad. I just need some sleep. I'll be fine tomorrow. And then there's this stunning anecdote. Let's get to that. At one point, Biden had an idea. If he looked perplexed when Trump talked, voters would understand that Trump was an idiot. Klain replied, sir, when you look perplexed, people just think you're perplexed. And this is our problem in the race. According to Whipple, Klain feared that the actual debate would be a disaster, and his fears came true. It absolutely was a disaster. But here's the twist. Even after the debate, Klain wanted Biden to stay in the race. Whipple said that Klain emphasized to him that he believed Biden should have run for re-election and thought he could win and govern effectively for another 4 years, a sentiment consistent with his fierce defense of Biden in the weeks after the June debate. Klain is very nice for being willing to have conversations and just talk to people and communicate with people when other administration officials were unwilling to. So I give him credit for that. That said, how do you go through these situations? How do you see his performance during the actual debate and still defend his decision to run for re-election? Remember, there was a full month after that debate in which Biden hadn't dropped out. That month was robbed from Democratic voters, from the American people, because there could have been a short primary to pick a better Democratic nominee, no?
Yeah.
I'm too angry about this at this point, and I'm sick of rehashing it. They effed up, and they have yet to take any responsibility for effing up.
Yeah, so here's one more thing that it tells me. That Jill Biden is a really bad person.
Yes, okay, sure. But Cenk, it's not just Jill Biden, obviously.
No, here's why I say Jill Biden, right? Because look, in a best case scenario, these bubbles are they warp a person's mind so much that a perfectly intelligent guy like Ron Klain sees a guy falling apart at the seams, can't talk, doesn't know anything, can't possibly enter a debate, and thinks we can win with him and he could be president for 4 years. Your best case scenario is mind unbelievably warped by that bubble, right? Bad case scenario for other people, et cetera, that might be involved is, I don't really care, I wanna stay in power. If Biden's in power, I'm in power, and I don't care that he can't think or he can't talk, right? Okay. We'll just wheel him out, right? But those are all for the advisors. Jill Biden is not just an advisor, she's his wife.
Oh my God, I mean, I can't imagine seeing my husband in that condition and still egging him on, urging him to run.
That's unbelievable.
Imagine it. I can't imagine it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, guys, look, the whole thing's over. The Bidens are never coming back. So this isn't some sort of like vendetta or personal, who cares, right? If I never see Jill Biden or I never talk about Jill Biden again, it'll be too soon, right? But I'm just stunned by how power hungry she was. That she saw a guy like that every single day. She lived with him every single day, can't remember anything, doesn't know what's going on. And she thought, I'm gonna wheel this guy out and have him humiliated in front of the whole country because I wanna hang on to power. That's sick.
You know, the one other thing I'm gonna bring up is, okay, so here you have Ron Klain saying, no, I think he could win. I think he could, be president for another 4 years. In other books that have come out recently, apparently administration officials were preparing for a situation in which Biden dies during his second term.
Yeah. Of course they knew, of course.
They don't care about you. They don't care about the country. They don't care about Americans. This is the president of the United States. And they're not only playing with his life, they're playing with your life, okay? It's sick. The whole thing is sick.
What if he had to make a nuclear decision and he has dementia? And what if he says launch? Are you gonna overrule the president? How are you gonna overrule the president in the middle of this mess? So look, one last thing about this. Guys, when we said, and you saw it here on the Young Turks, like what, a year and a half before Biden dropped out, we did a petition saying we got to get him out of the race. Please, President Biden, get out of the race. Because it was so overwhelmingly obvious that he was in mental decline based on things he was doing in public. Even in the tiny snippets, it was super obvious, right? The entire mainstream media, all of national media was like, nope, I don't see it. And that's why Jake Tapper writing that book is maddening.
It is.
It's like OJ trying to find the real killer. Like, are you serious that you're gonna write a book about how the White House lied to the reporters? He was shaking hands with invisible people. And you guys said, no, there's no problems here. Young and dynamic behind the scenes. And you all reported that he was young and dynamic. You're 1984. You're what George Orwell warned us about. The entire national media, why? Because challenging power is heresy inside Washington. All these reporters, they're not reporters at all. They're just marketing executives for the people in power. Their job is to cover up all their faults and to pretend that they're mighty. It's the Wizard of Oz. And that's why the Democrats are at 26%, because we open the curtain, we're like, oh, that's the wizard? That's the wizard, a guy who clearly has dementia. And you're telling us he's like this amazing guy, the best Democrat to run against Trump and like an amazing president, FDR 2.0. Almost everyone in Washington are enormous liars. Please, the next time they tell you, don't worry, this Democratic leader looks like an idiot, acts like an idiot, but he's so smart. He's playing 4-dimensional chess. You better obey him. Democratic leaders know best. No, they don't. They're a bunch of frauds. Who are totally rooking you and serving their corporate donors. Joe Biden has said one true thing in his career. When he promises donors, nothing will fundamentally change. That's the one thing he meant. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.